Greetings, fellow saxophone players. This is Mr. Jeff. I am glad that you have tuned in today. Today on this recording, I'd like to play for you the Region 29 Fast Etude, and this is for all saxophones. I'm going to be playing this today on my alto. The tempo markings in the piece, you'll see it says Allegro Moderato. So it means moderately fast. And you'll see that it's a quarter note equals 88 to 100. It would be like that. First of all, you'll see the dots over the notes. That's an indication that it means staccato. If you think back in the Essential Elements book, when you were in 6th grade, it taught you all the definitions of music. We kind of think of staccato, we say, oh, it's short, it's short. But the true definition of staccato is lightly separated. Yes, it does mean that it could be played short, but we don't want it to be pecky. We want to be able to hear the note. The other thing that's really get attuned to, especially when we play this faster, is that we have 8th notes followed by 16ths, and you'll hear that rhythm that goes. And one of the things that it's very easy to do is that on that 8th note, we start playing it short like a 16th, and it comes out like this. But that's not how it's written, is it? As we look at the music, it's really written like this. So we want to make sure that we give the values of the notes the amount of sound that it's supposed to based upon what it's indicated in the music. So if there's a dot on it, we want to make it a little bit shorter than if there's something that does not have a dot on it. But we want to make sure that we look and we read the music exactly the way that it's written. It's in 3/4, 3 beats to the measure. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Just as a reminder of a couple of things, of when we get a piece of music, we want to make sure that we're looking at the time signature and the key signature, the tempo that we're in. Learn it slow. Make sure you get all of the notes and all of the rhythms, and then we can pick up the tempo and play it a little bit faster. And also we want to make sure that we get all of those dynamic markings in there as well. What else in the music is identifying us how to make the music sound? Well, I see all different kinds of crescendos and decrescendos. I see bird's eye on measure 14, and that's a hold. That's a hold sign. And you'll see a little thing in measure 14 and measure 20 where it says RIT with a dot. And that's where we're going to actually do what we call in music a retard, that we're actually going to slow down the music. I see that we have all different kinds of levels of volume, how loud and soft that we're supposed to play. We're supposed to start off at mezzo forte, which is kind of, just a nice medium sound, probably like you would practice most of the time. But there's a forte in there, and then there's a P for piano. And that means we're going to play softer. And that's going to be the difference that what we're talking about here is that when the judges listen to you play, is that they're going to listen to those things and make the difference between you and other players. Are you doing what the music says? Are you playing in an even tempo? Are you playing in tune? And that all matters for us having good reads and that we've practiced and that we're ready for things. The other thing is, as I've listened to some other students play this, and even myself when I was practicing it, there's many rhythms in here that show us an eighth note followed by 2/16. One enda. One enda. It's in the first measure, it's in the second measure, it's in the third measure, and look at the fifth measure. It's all over the place, okay? But a lot of times we fall into the trap of playing that eighth note way too short. So if I'm just playing the very first measure, the way that I'm supposed to play it, here's the way it's supposed to sound. 1, 2, 3. I'll play it again. I hope that you heard the difference between what lightly separated is, and also that you didn't hear this come out. Because that's not the way that it's written. Remember, on the downbeat is a full eighth note. Ta da 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 da. Okay? And make sure that on those staccatos that we're not making it too tat, tat. A lot of times, I think I mentioned it in the region scale video, that that when we start out playing, we probably think of it more of a ta to be able to make a sound, and we kind of attack the note very, very hard. Ta. Now that we've matured, and now we're in 7th and 8th grade, we want to really try to make some good music and make our saxophone sound the way that it's supposed to be. And so in that sense, we want to make sure that we're not hitting the note too hard. And did you hear how I lightly separated those other notes? Okay. As we're looking through this piece of music, look at some of the accidentals that are coming up. Measure 3, all of a sudden we have a B natural going to a C sharp. And as you see, look at measure 6. In measure 6, there are 4 C sharps. If you don't have a pencil, make sure that you mark it. The very first downbeat in measure 6 is a C sharp, and that's going to carry through the whole measure. Remember, that's how accidentals work. They carry through for the whole measure. So we have 4 C sharps in there. And then you'll see in measure 7 is that it repeats itself again, just from the beginning, okay? We get into a little bit of difference there when we get into measure 11, but look at the dynamics. In measure 5, we've already crescendoed through measure 4, and then we get softer and then louder again. Measure 4 sounds like this. We're getting a little bit softer, and then look at measure 5. Now we're at a piano, very soft. Now we have measures 4 through 6 are played differently with our music markings than measures 8 through 10, even though they are exactly the same notes. Measure 10 is a little bit different than measure 6, but it's pretty similar. And then we get into this little middle section here. I wanted to talk about these next 4 measures. Measures 11, 12, 13, and 14. You'll see that it starts off piano. We have another natural in measure 11. Then we have a natural marking. The publisher, what they did, they helped us out a little bit. We've had lots of C sharps, and now they're telling us, hey, this is a reminder we're back into the original key, which would be C natural. Look at measure 12. 2 other natural B naturals, okay? Then we're back into B flat in measure 13. And then you see that in measure 14, we have that retard, and that's going to be in music that we slow down a little bit. And then we have the bird's eye, which we're going to hold that note out just a little bit longer before we go on. Let me demonstrate that to you here right now, okay? I'm going to play measures 11 through 14. In measure 14, I slowed down a little bit, and then I held that, on beat 3, I held that F a little bit longer, okay? One thing I wanted to also remind you of, in measure 11, we have some lines over those eighth notes, and that means legato, so we want to make sure that they are longer. And as you see in previous measures, where there was dots over those notes to make them shorter, but here now it's telling us that that we want to definitely play those a little bit longer. Then measure 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. I'll do that for you at a little bit slower tempo. Looking at measure 15 and 16, the downbeats have a little bit of accent. Doesn't mean that we make it shorter, but we emphasize it. We put a little bit more air there, okay, to do that. So I'm going to demonstrate that as well. 1, 2, 3. Let me play measures 19 and 20 for you again. That's how that's supposed to be played. And make sure, especially on the bird's eye notes, that last note there is a concert F for us. I don't know about you, but sometimes on that particular note on the saxophone, that's a tough note because that's our D. Sometimes we can get a fuzzy sound on it, and a lot of times we play very sharp. That's why it's good to have your tuner. Let's just see if we can get some tuning on that to make sure that that note locks in really good. Sometimes that note can be very sharp. Sometimes it might not be. But make sure that you have a good reed. Make sure that we're doing lots of good air through here. Make sure that we're sitting up straight and tall. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have a tendency to slouch a little bit, but make sure that we sit up straight and tall. So I hope that this was a help for you, and it was good to have you with me today. So take care. Bye-bye.